what do I think mastery is? For me, it's dedicating yourself to a journey and doing it with joy, doing it with love, doing it with passion, in spite of the sacrifices. So knowing that that journey is difficult and the likelihood of success may be 1%, but you're still dedicating yourself to that. That's the journey I'm on.
Patrick, I've been looking forward to this conversation for a long time. Like, we met a handful of years ago, and there was this instant spark about the spark you have about helping people be their very best, and the vehicle that you have to bring that to life. And it was like this instant, like, okay, this is awesome to get to know you. And here we are. And so why don't we just start with kind of the basics? Help our community understand what you do in Formula One, and then we'll also talk about boxing as well. But let's just start with Formula One.
Yeah, absolutely. Actually, that meeting was in a bar.
It was in a bar.
I know. You got to caveat.
Where were we? Where?
Miami.
It was Miami.
Yeah, race weekend in
F1,
Miami.
yeah.
F1. I mean, we'll probably get into that a little bit.
Yeah, yeah.
Not about the bar, but yeah.
We'll keep that off.
We'll keep that.
Okay,
that's
good.
off pod.
Yeah.
So firstly, really, really happy to be here. And I reflected on that a few times over the last couple of days, knowing that I was coming on.
Mm.
And it was a noisy bar. We hadn't met each other before.
Yeah.
But we got into some pretty deep stuff.
Right.
Just over a
gates.
couple of beers with music blaring in the background. And like you said, it was really refreshing for me in that environment to speak to somebody who was coming in objectively, not necessarily in that sport for a particularly long time, but to hear some of your observations about the environment was incredible for me. And
that's cool.
Like you said, yeah, when you asked me to come on, I was more than happy to.
Oh, cool.
What do I do? Performance coach, physiotherapist by background, master's degree in strength and conditioning, mental performance coaching as well. And I put that skill set around professional athletes. And predominantly that's Alex Albon, who races at Williams racing in Formula One right now. It's one of those sports we've already mentioned. It's a sit-down sport, so why did you need a coach?
And like rowing and maybe golf cart driving.
Yeah,
like these are all sit-down sports. Right? They're all
sports,
kind of the same.
Yeah. No physical capacity needed. But contrary to that, it's incredibly demanding from a physical performance point of view. Not just the physical intensity, but the intensity of the schedule. It's 24 races spread across the world, multiple time zones, triple headers, double headers. Don't know if you followed the schedule this year, but we went from Las Vegas double header to Abu Dhabi, about an 11-hour shift based on the schedule. So they get out of the car on a Saturday evening, and then they're expected to race again the following Saturday, Sunday. So incredibly intense from just a tolerance perspective, from a travel point of view. And fundamentally, what I do is help Alex physically prepare for that. So his conditioning. We're here in LA because we're doing a preseason training camp.
So we're in off season right now.
Yeah.
So in essence, you're helping prepare the athlete to be their very best. You're using primarily the vehicle of strength and conditioning as the main. You've also got training in mental performance, right? And then you've also got the physiology or physiotherapy background.
Yeah.
And so do you put hands-on as well?
If there's a need to.
Yeah. Okay.
If there's a need
That's
to.
part of your training.
Absolutely. Yeah. So that's where my career started. Went to a couple of Olympic Games as a lead physiotherapist for Team GP's canoeing squad. So that's predominantly where my skill set started.
Another sitting sport. That's interesting. So you're really good at this.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I could help you out. You sit a lot.
Yeah, I do. So I am a professional sitter.
You are.
I am world class at sitting. Look at the posture here. It's pretty damn
incredible,
good, isn't it?
Yeah,
I could probably do a little.
I need to sit up a little bit straighter.
Yeah, right.
As well.
Yeah. I mean, most people in our community are professional sitters. Even world class athletes sit more than we've ever sat. You know, so. But that you and I are obviously making fun of the demands of an F1 driver.
Yeah.
Just open up the aperture a little bit about Formula One.
Yeah.
Like, what actually is it? What happens? And like rip it right down into, X number of miles per hour.
Yeah.
And straight away to corners. And just what is Formula One?
Yeah, absolutely. So it's a single seater category. So kind of like IndyCar, right? It's that type of car.
Open wheel is a way
wheel.
that some people would recognize
open cockpit. Yeah, that's it.
Open cockpit,
open wheel.
Open wheel.
Traditional sport, very strong in Europe, always has been, but huge increase in popularity in the States and very strong in South America as well. Historically, a really strong link with drivers like Ayrton Senna, etc. And coming from South America, it's always had a really strong historical link with South America. But like we said, open wheel, 24 races this year. So a 24 race calendar spreading across the globe, the Americas, Australia, Asia, multiples in Europe, and bouncing between those. So we travel probably about 30 weeks a year between testing, racing, training camps. So pretty intense from a travel perspective. And then the physicality of the racing side, 320 kilometers an hour. What is that in miles?
It's about 200, somewhere in there.
Yeah, about 220 miles an hour. Not just the speed, but it's the cognitive processing and the technical ability to be able to drive at that speed. The margins are tiny. So if you look at 20 cars in the grid, when we look at qualifying, difference between first and 10th can be 0.3 of a second.
I mean, it's worth pausing on that. 0.3 of a second.
Mm-hmm.
And they call them pilots, right? We're colloquially calling them drivers, but they're called pilots because they're literally in a cockpit with a massive engine.
Absolutely.
And the demands that they have. So the Founding Mastery team was asking, like, why a performance coach, right? Like, and I said, have you ever driven for 3 hours? That's so long. It's a pretty significant drive. And when you get out of a car and you're just kind of going straight, maybe, for 65 miles an hour. Like, how about getting out of that car with hairpins and like downshifting from ripping from 200 to 60 miles an hour or less in radical corners with other cars, rubbing, moving around. And at any given point in time, the thing could get out of control. Mm-hmm. How would you feel after the end of a 2-3 hour drive? And it's like, oh, okay. So that's the easy version that I have of it.
Yeah, and it's interesting. We're here on training camp pre-season, as we said. He had his content person with him for a few days, and they were just doing some filming as we were doing some of his neck testing. So his pre-season benchmark for his neck strength.
I saw this on your social.
Yeah, it blew up. I'm not really a social media guy, but F1 ended up sharing it. But it was basically him. 3 levels of neck training. It was 20 kilos, 40 kilos. And then his 1RMs were 80 plus.
1RM is 1 rep
1
max.
Rep max. Yeah. So the maximum amount he can take through side flexions, which is cornering, and then extension, which is for braking.
And what can he handle?
So 83 left and right, roughly 83 and 76 extension.
And the normal human, pencil neck like me.
15, 20 kilos maybe.
Right.
Well, you.
6.
I knew
that was a lob play.
You drew that up. I was being too generous there.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
But that's it, right? And again, you look at some of the comments under the video, and exactly like you've expressed there, the level of surprise with, wow, why do they need to be that strong? Like, that's incredible. He weighs 74 kilos. So his 1RM neck.
What is that? 170?
So multiplied by 2.24.
Yeah.
About 170.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So his neck strength is greater than his body capacity.
How about that?
Yeah. And that's just one component. So if you take Silverstone, which is a really famous track in the UK. Really historical track, right? Everybody knows the names of the corners there. And there's a sequence, and it's 4 S's. It's called Maggots and Beckett's, but it's a really high speed sequence of 4 corners. Foot down, no brake, just go. But big changes of direction, relatively big changes of direction at that speed. So therefore the G goes up. And if you take one sequence of those 4 corners, just one lap is about 140 kilos through his neck at that speed. And he could do 120, 130 laps in a race weekend.
And if you don't have that just neck strength, your head is getting ping-ponged around. You can't keep your eyes north.
Huge.
Or whatever,
Yeah.
And so you're getting whipped around by the machine instead of you having that sense of strength and control, both of body to have control of mind. So if your body's getting whipped around, I don't really care how skilled you are from a psychological perspective. If you can't find a level because your body is so off axis, it's very, very hard to do anything well.
Impossible. He'll get out after qualifying sometimes. And this is the level of detail that he's at. He'll tell me.
Oh wait, we should do qualifying. Let's just do race day for a minute.
Yeah.
And then to use that as a kind of a spine for after qualifying the insight that you're going to share.
Mm-hmm.
So let's actually do this day in the life.
Day and
Okay,
life. Race
so
weekend.
We arrive. Where are we going to arrive? Abu Dhabi. I'm actually going there in a couple weeks.
Oh, there we go.
Yeah, okay, right. So
Segue.
yeah, right. So where are we going? Wait, give me a track name.
A good track.
Yeah,
Let's go old school.
Singapore.
Let's go.
Do you like Singapore? Oh, you want to go old
Let's
school?
go Suzuka.
Okay.
Suzuka, Japan.
Okay. All right.
It's Alex's favorite track.
Oh.
There we go. Had to go there.
Yeah. Okay, good. So we arrive on a Tuesday. Is that right?
Yep.
Okay. So we arrive on a Tuesday. And we just maybe are ripping from, I don't know, what was before that? Was it Mexico?
It's normally Singapore, actually.
So that's actually not so bad, right? That's not a too
Well,
bad.
weirdly, we stay on European time for Singapore because it's a night race.
Okay.
So then you end up having a huge shift. And it's Singapore is, outside of Qatar this year, is the most physical race of the year because of the heat and the humidity.
There you go.
Yeah. So it's a brutal doubleheader. They've actually changed this year, but it in itself is.
And doubleheader to you means back-to-back weekends.
Back-to-back races, yeah.
Okay. So you wrap up on a Sunday, jump on a flight, punch down to Japan. And let's say we're there on that day. It's
Just say we arrive on a Tuesday. Yeah.
Okay. All right. Cool.
Yeah. Massive shift jet lag wise. Okay. So jet lag planning across that Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday is huge.
So on average, for every hour time zone, it's about 1 day to balance yourself.
Yeah.
So this is like, at some level, it just gets ridiculous for these drivers because there's not enough time in the week, right? Okay. So it will be fun for us to talk about like, what are some of the strategies you use for time zone management?
Absolutely.
Yeah. Okay. But let's say, so time zone, Tuesday, wake up, there's a, where am I? And my body feels like it's 2 a.m., but it's noon.
Yeah, absolutely. So that's where that jet lag plan comes in. So utilizing light, utilizing exercise, shifting his meals to the times that we need him to be at to help his body adapt. So that Tuesday will be very energy dependent.
So in the mornings, you want to have as much light as you possibly can.
Absolutely. Light, caffeine, exercise.
And outside. If you can't get outside, you try to get a light spectrum. Do you travel with a white light?
We have done in the past when Alex hasn't left it in the hotel room.
Yeah. I was doing that up in Seattle a bunch. I felt like we had a competitive advantage because it was prior to the understanding of how popularized light manipulation is. And, it's dark in Seattle in the Northwest there. So, so light is really cool. So you're using light as a training tool.
Absolutely.
Okay. Hydration as well, probably.
Yeah. Hydration, good nutrition.
Yep.
And that's a little bit dependent on what's happened the weekend before. So like we said, most physical demanding race of the year. So there's some replenishment there in terms of just nutritional value, and absolutely is hydration. So we do his urine checks every morning, check his hydration, check his body weight.
What are you using, like a gravity stick? Or
absolutely.
Is that what you're using?
Every morning, yeah. So when we travel, every morning we check his urine gravity so that and that's the glamorous part of the job, right? When I'm knocking in his hotel room.
Are you digging in there?
I mean, I've got gloves on.
You're digging in there.
And a pipette. I'm not sure what you mean by digging in there.
God. Yeah, man. So, all right. So you're using a stick basically to see, to be precise.
Yeah.
So you're not using color of urine.
No, a digital refractor.
Yeah, that's right. Okay. Glamorous part. Okay. So, all right. And if underhydrated, the recipe is pretty easy, but are you using, a sophisticated electrolyte or an off the shelf?
We just use an off the shelf because there's a point at which you're just not going to take on any more of that. You're just going to expel it. Yeah. So once we've topped up to that tolerance level, we're happy with that and we're comfortable with that as part of our nutritional plan, just an off the shelf.
All right. So then what happens next?
So again, energy dependent. We'll have a session on Tuesday.
That's an important statement. What you just said, energy dependent.
Absolutely.
So how do you measure the energy? Is that subjective when Alex says, "I feel good," or is it something else that you're looking at?
Mixture of subjective. So he does a daily questionnaire for us.
You do?
Yeah, absolutely. Particularly when we're traveling across multiple time zones, and then sleep quality really determines where we're at with energy.
Once and are you measuring? Are you using sleep tech?
Wearables? Yeah.
Okay, and then is it the basic 4 questions for sleep, soreness, stress?
Absolutely. So and we put in readiness to train, readiness to compete. Yeah.
And then it's really important just to note that that discipline is hard to keep up because it's so easy just to quote unquote eyeball it.
Yeah.
And you're shaking your head like that's really sloppy.
It's sloppy and it leaves you exposed.
Yes.
So, I mean, without probably going on too much of a tangent, for me, there's a real line between me creating a performance environment for Alex to be able to show up in and demonstrate his ability versus me taking away his personal responsibility and his ownership over his own journey and his independence within that.
That's a really cool insight. Let's I feel like this is how you and I work. Like, let's open that up. Let's open that up too.
We're like,
oh, there's
12 Pandora boxes here.
Yeah, but that's really good.
Yeah.
Do that again, because that's not where I typically go with requesting data. So where I typically go with data management is to have a trend line and reference points is one, so that we can see trends across and try to get an understanding of what are some of the factors and influencers for ups and downs, let's say, to keep it simple. And then the other is it's a forcing function for reflection.
Yes.
And so those are really good, but you did something different in what you just said. So open that up again one more time.
Yeah. So for me, it's like I said, there's a thin line for me between creating an optimal performance environment for an athlete to be able to turn up and compete in, right? Versus taking away their personal responsibility and ownership over their journey.
So you want to make sure that they have ownership.
Absolutely. It's their journey.
And so when they see data.
Yeah. So the ownership for them is, this is a key part of our performance preparation. Mm-hmm. It's you spending 30 seconds filling in a questionnaire on an app, which informs pretty much everything we do for the next week on a rolling basis. So if you don't do that part A, the rest of it falls down. And that's your responsibility.
It is guesswork. If you don't have, it could be really good, but it's not sophisticated. And to your point, like almost everybody's exposed at that point.
Yeah. And for me, what I've become comfortable with when the opportunity arises and it's necessary is some controlled failure, which is, and the perfect example of that happened over Las Vegas, which was incredibly busy week in terms of media, commitments from a partnership point of view, insane. Performance was so far from the minds of any team in F1 that week. The schedule was horrendous. It was a night race, but they decided to put qualifying on at 12 p.m.
I saw that.
Yeah. Look, it was so far away from ideal in terms of preparation. It wasn't even funny. We got to post week and then traveling to Abu Dhabi, and there was conversations to be had about how we planned that week from a team perspective and partnerships and media and contractual things that he had to do that impeded on his performance. But he hadn't filled in any data for me.
I see.
So we had that conversation in between Vegas and Abu Dhabi. I said, you've left us exposed here, because I can't have that conversation now. Because when I say, here's the impact, I can't demonstrate that. That's your responsibility.
That's cool.
I can do the back end. You've got to do the front end. I can't guess how you're feeling. I can tell by your face, and I can ask you, sleep okay last night? But that's not data. I can't use that. That doesn't demonstrate the trends that we've got over the last 6 years.
Yeah, for most of the U.S. practitioners, whether it's strength and conditioning or sports performance, and maybe we even need to differentiate the two for our community. But in like 1980, 1990, that's kind of how it worked, you know. But then as we learned from the UK and from Australia and from some of the more sports science advanced, forward-leaning, data became more important. And taking that data to applied information, that leap is that's the leap that is more rare than many would think. They get stuck in data management as opposed to information sharing.
And I think you go through a journey, and I certainly went through the journey where I had years of spreadsheets of data.
Yeah.
And having tons of data, and that was great.
Yeah.
But it didn't tell me anything, or I couldn't find the detail in there because it was just so much. Now we've got a really simple formula that works for us, but it's responsive and reflective, and it tells us exactly what we need to do to be able to plan the next week and the next week and the next week. But we both have responsibility in that.
So that's the one part, the responsibility. And then the other part, you talked about creating the optimal environment. And so what's the tension between those two?
That's less tangible. That's a little bit more down to the relationship and the environment.
Yeah.
And I'll say this, and the picture in my mind is me standing there folding Alex's laundry. because he, at track getting his kit ready and being like bagging up his dirty laundry and folding his kit and making sure it's ready.
Yeah.
And then I'm having this conversation about doing too much and taking that responsibility away. But I kind of jest about that stuff. But I've had experience in the past where on training camps, going to a Worlds, which was a selection event for the Olympic Games, and having a meeting with the head coach the night before with all the support staff and just talking about the logistics plan for the next day. And he was running through and I was probably drifting away a little bit, just a few things that I had on my list. And I just heard him say, and the athletes will bring their bags down to the lobby and then the staff will load the bags onto the bus. And I just said, excuse me, what? And he was like, well, yeah, you guys can load their bags. And I was like, we've got Olympic athletes here. What, they can't put their own bag on a bus?
How about it?
That's not a performance gain.
Mm-hmm.
You're not telling me that them having just that simple responsibility of putting their bag on the bus is something that's going to detract from their potential to perform 6 days later.
Yeah, that's right.
I'm not on for that.
You said that.
I said they can put their own bag. I'm not lifting their bag.
Yeah.
You're telling me a guy who can wide arm chin, one RM, 90 kilos between his legs, who is an Olympic champion and a world champion, can't lift his bag on the bus.
Right, yeah.
And that for me was one of those moments where it just became that shift in mentality. What are we trying to do here? What's creating an environment for performance or stripping athlete independence? And we blame them then when they don't take responsibility, when all we've done is take it from them. And then we say suddenly, now that's your responsibility, do it. Why didn't you do that? Well, we've taken that skill away from them. We've taken their focus away from preparation, ownership, responsibility. And I come back to that a lot. And I did a presentation this morning for some of our new coaches in the academy. And one of my points was, it's their journey. You're here to support. I heard you say that
earlier. Yeah. It's a really strong statement you just made. I think there's maybe a crossover. I resonate so deeply with that. One, Carl Rogers was a mentor of mine that I never got to meet. And he influenced what's called Rogerian therapy, Rogerian psychotherapy. And so Carl Rogers had a fundamental belief and that everything a person needs is already inside them. And his job in the relationship is to have this unconditional positive regard and this curious lean towards, how do you really work? What do you really want? It's already in there. How can we unlock it? And so Carl Rogers, I think you have that spirit that it's in there for the person. And it's about like unconditional positive regard for the human. And then performance is a different thing.
Couldn't agree more.
Okay. And then add one level to it I think you and I vibe with is that you've got a history in boxing, both as an athlete and as a coach. Is that right? Yeah.
Very low level athlete.
I was going to say, we're not going to talk about your record probably, right? Yeah. But did you act professional or amateur?
No. Just some amateur stuff.
Yeah. Okay, cool. Yeah, very cool. I have respect for that too. Like being in a roped environment with another highly skilled human that is punching you in the face or trying to, and there's nowhere to go.
Oh, it's actually my passion is boxing.
Yeah, I understand
the culture of it.
Yeah,
and you can be 20-0 or 0-20, and I've got the same level of respect for you.
See, there you go. Because that's the unconditional positive regard. Yeah. It's not about performance output.
No.
Do you lose respect when somebody ducks their chin and gives and starts to give their back?
That's more a limitation of your ability.
I think it's a limitation of your mind. You go to ability.
Yeah. I'm trying to be generous.
Yeah.
Because I've not been in that position.
Yeah. Oh, you're a tough guy.
No, in terms of I've never been quick enough to duck my chin.
That's so good. I was basically saying, when you feel overwhelmed, you're like, get me out of here.
Yeah,
and you're ducking a move.
No, never.
Yeah, because
you got to lean into that.
Yeah, that's reflexive.
Yeah,
is to try to get away from something that's overwhelming.
Absolutely.
And to drop your hips, to hold your chin down and make eye contact is a very, very hard thing to do. And I have great respect for people that can do that, especially in that sport. But my long-winded way of saying, when I did spend some time in MMA, that the coaching staff there, and I put that in quotes, it was like a striking coach, it was like a technical coach and me, but like it sounded more sophisticated. And we had a very clear understanding that the athlete, we were preparing the athlete to go into the cage by himself, period. And so it's their journey. When I hear you say that, it's such a regard for the other. That's a really cool gift that how you show up, that you give the other person.
Yeah. And I say that from two perspectives. One is exactly that. I'm just a small part to help to support you on that. And the other power in it for a coach is it's not about me. So the same point has two reflections for me, which is the power to you as the athlete, but also the accountability to me as just the coach. And I've always had the opinion of knowing what an environment needs. And if that's quiet, then be quiet. And if that's some energy, then bring some energy.
Cool.
But never try and dominate the environment, or never try and make the environment about you, because it's not.
It's very cool.
The privilege for us is to be in that space with somebody like Alex when he's preparing for a race, or be in a dressing room with a boxer about to fight for a world title. Mm-hmm. That's the privilege part of it.
Yeah, right.
Nothing that you've done has gotten you to that point except for their work. So respect that environment and know that you're there to stand in the corner unless you're asked otherwise. And you don't have to demonstrate your value by noise.
By what?
By noise.
By what?
Noise. Sorry, was that Irish? Are you going to subtitle it?
Easy.
I love that one up for you.
Yeah, that was easy. Thank you.
It's all right.
Yeah, by noise. Yeah. So, okay. So, let me chin check that a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
Stay with the metaphor. You are world class at what you do. Alex is world class at what he does. The way I know how you work, you are not submissive. You are not deferent. You are not shy. You are not hiding. You are present.
Mm-hmm.
And I see you, I don't know how you see you. Okay. I see you as a peer to Alex. You are both world class at what you do. There is a partnership in place. Alex has one job. You have another job. There is a difference, though, in that he is hiring you.
Mm-hmm.
So there's that thing. And then there's also, like, I am a support staff as well. Okay. So by definition, I understand what we're talking about. And my philosophy is to be the hand that leaves the pond without a trace.
Yeah.
So I think that you're just...
That's what I'm trying to say, really.
Yeah. I said it better, but it's okay.
Well, you did.
I'm joking.
Just a little bit.
Yeah. No, because... but I see you as a peer.
Yeah. And you can do that. You can be all of those things in that environment for your athlete. I don't know if I'm articulating it well enough, but it's...
No, you
that environment's not about you.
Okay. However, this is your life too.
Yeah, for sure.
And your experience in life is really important. And you are world class at what you do. And part of the world class is the way that you take up space without saturating the space. Is that fair to say?
That's probably exactly what I'm trying to say.
Yeah, I like that.
It's the know what you're there for, judge the environment, bring your skill set to that, support your athlete, but know what the space needs. You know, there's times I will bring energy to a space because that's what it needs. Mm-hmm. And there's certainly times through our preparation, I know we got a little bit off topic, but certainly how we create the environment for Alex to, and we call it his flow state, how he connects to what he feels is the optimal space for him to perform in car. There's stuff that we do around that performance that we know we need to do to create that mental space for him to be able to step into the car. And I think if practitioners looked at us and how we prepare in hospitality and in the garage, they go, these two are jokers. Mm-hmm. But everything that we do is a conscious decision around what he needs in those final moments to create that space for him to be able to step into the car in the right frame of mind. And like I said, try and replicate that flow state as much as he possibly can. And that's still a work in progress. So in the zone, flow state, it has lots of different terms, right? But there's times where we don't do that. There's times where he needs quiet and he needs peace and he needs space to reflect.
Yeah.
And it's not all one mood suits all scenarios. So it's as a practitioner, it's knowing where what those spaces are and how you turn up in those spaces and what you bring to them or what you take away from them. And that's just as important sometimes.
Yeah, what I hear for you right now is the dimensionality you have that comes after you are aware. So with the awareness, so you have a philosophy and a position that you hold, which is unconditional positive regard for Alex. And there's an agreement and a partnership that you are going to help him be his very best. Is there a reciprocal commitment that he has an unconditional positive regard for you and he's going to help you be your best?
I would say he certainly has an unconditional positive regard for me and what I bring to him.
It feels that way when I'm around you guys.
And I've always been very clear, and I've only had to threaten him once.
You haven't what?
I've only had to threaten him once. Genuinely.
Did you drop your hips? Pull your chin down, look him in the eye. Did your hands come up?
Alex is a lover. He's not a fighter.
Yes, just celebrate Alex.
To be fair, he actually is a fighter.
He's
he's had to fight every step of his career.
Oh, that way.
Yeah. And we had him in a boxing gym yesterday, and we're in a boxing gym tomorrow.
He's really long.
He is. He's got some good power too.
Yeah, does he? Yeah.
Yeah, he just...
you know what? Like, let's celebrate him for a minute. Like, just how free he is.
Yeah.
He's just... I don't know what color his hair is today, but like he's just so free.
He needs to do something about his hair at the minute. It's his natural color, but I'm not sure what he's doing with it.
Is this your other barbershop as well?
I'm just worried the helmet won't fit in his head.
He's got a lot of hair right now.
Yeah, it's just let it be.
Oh, that's good. But he's to see somebody be themselves in a high stakes, high pressured, exacting environment. And to have that freedom the courage to get free is a better way to say it. It is so refreshing. This is really what I wanted to focus on is how you've created the relationship and the environment for the athlete to be, or the pilot, the driver, to be himself. That is a radical bit of work to do that. Who cares, honestly, from my standpoint, about how strong his neck is? And obviously it's a capability.
Absolutely. And I more and more now coming to the realization that the physical stuff is easy.
Oh,
getting him fit and getting him healthy is easy. That's child's play.
Mm.
Getting him top 3 on the grid, that's the job.
Mm-hmm.
And like he said, and I'm probably drifting from my own philosophy there, which is it's actually about the individual and developing him. The sport kind of comes second, really.
Mm-hmm.
Because I know when Alex is in a space where, exactly like you've described, where he's confident and comfortable in expressing himself exactly how he wants to, and he's being able to operate within his own philosophy, how he wants to treat people in that space. And you've been in Formula One, you've worked in it, worked drivers, how challenging an environment that can be.
Very challenging.
For sure. And you know, not a lot of things in Formula One are real. So it's hard to be real in a space like that. And
what does that mean?
Authentic.
That's it.
Authentic, really.
There's a lot of bullshit.
Yeah. I didn't know we could say that on the pod. Yeah, there's a ton of bullshit.
Yeah.
That was quite liberating. Thank you for that. Thank you for the permission.
Your Irish roots.
Yeah. I'm just holding back all these. Yeah, don't worry.
Can I help you open up a little? Yeah, right. So, there's a lot of wealthy bullshit. A lot of promises.
Yeah, 100%. Fakeness.
Mm-hmm.
Like I said, people who aren't genuine about their intentions offer you the world and deliver nothing. So for me, actually the proudest part of what I do right now is just seeing him walk in the paddock, dressed how he wants to dress, with blonde hair, red hair, who cares?
Yeah.
And knowing that actually that's the best space for him to perform, which is he's authentic, he's Alex. His core values are honesty, integrity, trust, treat people how you want to be treated, treat people with respect. And when he's in that space, that's the power that he's got. And if we can protect that and he gets into the car in that space, wow.
Watch out.
It's next level, yeah.
Yeah, watch out. Yeah. I think one of the under-celebrated and more powerful practices is for, and you can deploy this or use this with your life partner, with the athlete you're working with your friends, with your supervisor or your direct report. It's bidirectional, is to spend the quiet time to try to understand what is uniquely special about a human.
Mm-hmm.
And then have conversations to elicit what that is. So you're not just making it up in your imagination, but you're having conversations trying to understand what is really special about this person, and then convey it back. And then you use the word protect, which I usually don't use, but let's use it. You hold that in such a sanctuary that it would be natural to protect that, right? So I get where you're going. That is, and then so when somebody does that with me, I'm like, oh, I feel seen. Oh, the parts of me that I feel are special are recognized. And this person's going to have my back to help me be that more often. I feel that right now, even in my throat, dude. Like my whole body goes, that's love.
Yeah. And that's exactly what it is. It's initially giving him, or I wouldn't say give him the permission to do that, but letting him know that that's okay.
If we changed one word and instead of letting, because I saw you struggle with permission.
Yeah,
giving permission, letting is this almost the same
because
thing?
it's not mine to own, but it's
right.
It's creating not even create. Tell me what the word is. You're more articulate.
I don't know another word other than exploring or celebrating.
Yeah,
and I liked
celebrating's good.
You know, it's like finding what's special and like holding that in a special way.
Yeah, and reassuring that it's okay to be that. Like that's a really phenomenal quality to have. And just because other people don't demonstrate that, or you can't see that in a lot of people around you, doesn't mean that you have to behave any different.
That's right. Oh, that's very cool, dude.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I'll follow that on because it's something that I get asked a lot. Is he too nice? Drives me insane.
Yeah, right.
Drives me.
Does he have a killer
insane?
Can he finish? Yeah. Can he really drop the hammer and fight?
My answer to that is, if you knew anything about Alex's backstory, there's nothing about his journey that he hasn't earned through digging his fingernails in. Like, incredible backstory. So you can put that aside. He's not a rich kid who's bought a seat all the way through the categories and ended up in Formula One. He's had to work for every seat. Which is a
very common.
Very, very common.
Yeah.
And increasingly more common. He's just somebody who has made a choice about how he wants to represent himself in that environment. And he's comfortable enough and strong enough as an individual to stay within that philosophy even when it's challenged. That doesn't mean when he gets in the car, he wouldn't run over his grandmother, because he would. He's an absolute born competitor. And when it comes to that car, get out of his way. And there is no stone left unturned in terms of his physical preparation, his technical preparation, his time with engineers, the level of detail he will go to set the car up exactly how it needs to be set up based on the track, the conditions, his style. When he's on track, you know, he's always got close to the max penalty points per year because he's a competitor. You know, you don't get to where he's at right now by not being a competitor and not being ruthless. But people misinterpret how he wants to represent himself with being too nice or too soft, as if that's some predetermining factor for why he may not have won a world championship yet.
Kindness and excellence don't go together.
Yeah.
Kindness and competitiveness don't go.
No, that's a choice. That's a choice you make. And actually the strength is making the choice to stay who you are.
About it.
Yeah.
Wait, that's worth saying again. Say that one more time.
The strength is making the choice to stay who you are.
You have to first know who you are. And did you do anything that is repeatable for you to understand how you might have assisted or helped him know himself better? Or did he come to the environment pretty well clear?
No. First 2 years.
Yeah, you've been with him 6, I think?
6 years, yeah.
And so the first 2 years he was...
A lot of figuring out. A lot of really old strategies. A lot of really old beliefs that he'd formed through his career. And through his experiences with family and friends and all of those relationships that he was trying to utilize in this new environment that just were not working. And beliefs around his performance and the kind of, we talked about the flow state, but that's so far away from what he thought he needed to create in those first year or two of certainly around qualifying. He actually thought it was the opposite. He had this belief coming in that he actually needed, the more pressure he created on himself, the better his performance would potentially be.
Interesting.
And that came from a space, and when we spent time digging down into that, it was, like I said, he there was categories where he'd gone race by race, not knowing if he'd have a seat the next race, never mind if he'd have a seat for the season. So there was clearly periods in that where those performances were so pressurized, and he would produce a performance that put him on pole or put him second, and then he'd win a race or he'd come on the podium. So he created this belief that it was the pressure that did that, right? It was the pressure created the environment for me to be able to perform. And my challenge to that for him was, your performances were actually in spite of that pressure. That if you had the strategies in place to be able to negate that pressure or actually deal with it better, or prepare better, or understand yourself more in terms of what you needed to create from a performance point of view, who knows what those results would have been. And we've gone completely the other end of the spectrum now. And that's why I talked about earlier, we laugh and we joke in our warm-up and we come into the garage and we're still laughing. But the second he pulls that balaclava on, boom, he's there. But we don't need to create that pressure. We want him, we talk about flow, we flow through everything that we do, especially when it comes to a session, especially when it comes to qualifying. Everything's set up, we just move, kit's ready, gets kit ready, we move into the garage, he does his warm-up. We're not looking for stuff, we're not unbagging stuff, we're not, oh, I forgot this. Everything is there for him to move sequentially through. Keep it light, we warm up in the garage because we want the boys involved, we want the mechanics involved. We want to have a laugh as we do that. We get into the garage. So when we get there, because he's a field driver, it's all about his intuition. It's all about what he feels through his hands and his bum and what he sees. The more he thinks about it, the slower he is. So we need to get all of that noise away from him. Keep all that light, keep all that fresh. Balaclava on, helmet on, in the car. Know your procedures, go out and deliver. So the less space he has to think about things before he gets in the car, exponentially better he is.
Cool.
Even down to...
So then you occupy movement and task at hand focus as opposed to leaving downtime for analysis.
There is the space for that because he needs that.
Everybody does.
Yeah.
Yeah, but
and
you're
he
not
probably
letting that just run.
No, we're in control of every minute.
Yeah.
We need to be. And it might not look like we're in control of every minute, but everything that we do is down to the minute. And even down to, we want him in that unconscious competence space. Just go and just go and do.
Trust your body.
Trust your body.
Trust your ability
instinct.
to figure out, let it go.
The second you start thinking, you're losing time.
Yeah.
Even down to the steering wheels and all the cars will have a delta, which gives you your lap time, either plus or minus each corner. And what we'd figured out again, when we'd come to this realization around how do we create this space, and then we got down to the technical, right? What are the things in the car that we can support you with to help clear your mind, allow you to access that more? And he goes, well, there's a delta on my screen that tells me every corner where my time is. So he said, I go through a corner and I'm a tenth down. All I'm thinking about is I need to get a tenth back. I'm already not present. I go through a corner, I've got 2 tenths up. He goes, right, don't lose that 2 tenths. Don't lose the 2 tenths. You're already in the next corner and you're worrying about the 2 tenths that you've had in the corner before.
The game's way too fast.
So
you took that gauge off.
And when we got challenged by his engineers, our response to it was, there's not one lap on a race weekend that Alex Albon isn't attacking at 150%.
Yeah. So why
do we need to see the time?
Yeah. I mean,
when he crosses that finish line, the time is absolutely the time that he could have delivered in that moment. Okay, there could be some mistakes in there, conditions might vary, etc. But never doubt the delivery in terms of his commitment to that one lap. So we don't need to know if he's up or down.
It is a awesome commitment to the process, trusting that his process is to push. His process is to get to the right feel from his bum, from his hands. And what was the third variable?
His visual. To trust that he's getting it on edge. And he's using that data as opposed to +1, -1. That's really cool. Yeah, that's really cool. And that comes from a commitment he has to make that, no, I'm pushing, trust me. Yeah.
I'm going to push.
Yeah.
Yeah, right.
Don't doubt me.
Yeah, right.
That is a philosophy he lives by in terms of his driving.
Is that his philosophy?
Yeah.
Don't doubt me?
That's part of it. That's something we've built in. And that's his next step in terms of his development.
I wonder if what the difference between don't doubt on me versus bet on me.
Yeah, right. It's a flip.
I wonder.
But I'm not overly convinced by it because it's externalizing it.
Yeah, that's
it's
correct.
like you're looking for approval.
That's
We don't need approval. You're already here.
That's right.
Yeah. And you're demonstrating your potential. And I say potential intentionally because he's not even close to where he can get to. And that's the scary part, is he's still on that journey. And he's made huge steps, like incredible steps. And that's what we can see on track right now. Like we talk about Alex in the paddock. That's Alex, 5 years on a journey. But where he can get to is scary.
That must be really fun for you.
Yeah, it's exciting.
What is have you worked on articulating your philosophy, your personal philosophy, or?
It's a mixture of coach the individual, not the sport. So that's the phrase I've used a lot.
Yeah, that's cool. That is definitely, I think that's more of a professional philosophy.
Yeah.
Like that's your approach.
And if I go down personally into that, that's a really good question. And it's not one that I've necessarily articulated.
It's a good bit of work.
But yeah, it's a really good bit of work. And my instinct is it's about the relationship.
Yeah.
It's about the power of the relationship.
One of the first principles that I work from is through relationships we become.
Mm.
And so then you say, what does that mean? Well, we're a work in progress. We're becoming. It's the relationships that is the antecedent. It's the vehicle for that. And it begins with the relationship with yourself, relationship with others, Mother Nature, experience, your relationship with experience. And I'm adding now your relationship with machines.
Yeah.
Because
yeah.
Right, they're coming. Yeah, they're
coming.
really coming. So yeah, very cool. So now we're talking about structuring the relationship. We're talking about creating an environment.
Yeah.
And that environment is to support the athlete to be their very best, to be in an ideal state, to trust themselves, to be able to manage whatever is happening. You're scripting the time, but feeling your way through. It's almost like your dance partners.
Yeah.
Feeling your way through. Is it more jazz, or is it more ballet where it's very clearly orchestrated, or is it more like, and I'm using music now from dance to music, is it more like jazz? Like when he riffs this, I know how to pivot off that.
I would say it's a little bit more scripted in terms of just that's how he likes to prepare. There's not a lot that's off sheet.
So if I were to watch from one race to the next race, it's pretty similar.
I would say 80% of what we do is probably consistent.
So 80% structure, 80% form, 20% breaking form.
Yes.
And that breaking form is the jazz bit.
That's the jazz bit. That's the expression.
That's the expression.
Because the performance side still comes first. And
what does that mean?
That the consistency of your performance behavior is just as important. So, we spent the first few minutes of the podcast talking about jet lag plans and our commitment to following that, because that's the science. That's the formal bit. That's the 80%.
That's the form.
That's the bit that we can't deviate from, because we know that's what underpins how we prepare.
Mm-hmm.
The 20% is the expression. The 20% is the fun in the garage, the jokes around the car, even though I know that's part of the structure, but that's still self-expression. That's the bit that we can have some fun with.
What do you do to be your very best? How do you take care of that? Because your profession is to help somebody else be their very best. It's a noble life commitment. What do you put in plan for you to be your best?
I think there's two parts to that. One is I went on my own journey, and I've had my own coaching for the last 7-8 years. And that's something,
working on.
That's a new pod.
Yeah, this is the place.
My own stuff.
It's just you and me.
Yeah,
and millions.
Yeah, my own beliefs from my own childhood, and beliefs I had about myself, and attitudes to work, and people I was trying to impress that didn't need to be impressed, that already loved me. And you can guess how those kind of people are. Mm-hmm. And that's, on a similar journey to Alex, in that it's okay to be me. And that's all I was doing at times, was getting in my own way. And
Amen.
Striving for something that wasn't really important to me. Actually, the important stuff were, again, the relationships.
Yeah.
And once I started to step away from that, and I really unpicked some of that stuff some of that baggage I was bringing, the relief was incredible. But also the freedom I have now in terms of, I have a love for Alex that is professional and personal in terms of the relationship that we've got. But if it's not right, I could step away from that job in the morning. I don't want to, but I can. And there's a power in that for me as well. That means my professional career is a choice, and I can choose what I want to do. But I don't think I could have done that 6-7 years ago,
because
I think I was being dictated to by assumptions and attitudes that I'd made for myself around, oh, you need to be here. And I remember standing, and this is really weird because it came back to me recently. I was in a job, it wasn't fulfilling me by any stretch of the imagination.
for performance-based or something else?
Performance-based, but a little bit more administrative, a little bit more managerial.
Yeah.
Just wasn't floating my boat, but it was a very good job. And I remember, and this girl is still a friend of mine, she's a physiotherapist, and we were standing in the canteen making a cup of tea, and I just had a day of like, this is just not for me. And I guess you could sense that energy, and she said, are you okay? And the phrase, and it sounds dickish, I said, I always thought my life would be exceptional in terms of, and I think I meant from a career point of view. And here I was looking at spreadsheets, and I handed in my notice 6 weeks later.
That
and
moment.
2 days after that, I got a call to be the lead physio for the British canoeing Olympic squad for Rio.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
And that was a really special moment. That was a big transition for me, big shift in terms of taking back control.
Yeah, dude.
Yeah, making
That's
that
really
choice.
cool.
And the support from a coach came after that, but I was already starting to push my way through the weeds.
What part of your upbringing, was it micro traumas or big
No.
traumas?
No, just no. I wouldn't call them micro traumas or big traumas, but very traditional Irish upbringing, like parents who loved us incredibly so. Didn't have a lot, like working class family. Both parents left school at 12 because they had to. Really incredibly intelligent people who worked hard. And there was just attitudes that I had around.
Northern or
that's controversial.
Yeah,
it's all the same.
Where are you going? It's all the same, you said?
To me, it is.
Yeah, there you go. Okay.
that's
Through
a
and
percentage
through.
of
You
your
went through and
listenership
through.
that's gone.
Yeah, right.
Or at least I'm gone.
Yeah, right.
I'm blocked. No, from the South Republic. Yeah, so place called Laois, little small farming backgrounds. I always felt that the sacrifices that our parents made for us needed to be repaid.
Got it.
And I was searching for a way to repay that. And I just didn't need to. They loved me for who I was. And they were incredibly proud of what I'd done, even up to that point. And they still are.
Yeah.
They love sport. We were a sports crazy family. My dad was a coach. Had another job, but would have made a phenomenal coach if the opportunity and the time had been different.
Yeah.
And I think that was the biggest release for me around, I don't need to repay them. Just,
Yeah, there you go.
that was the freedom for me in that.
And it sounds also like the a rite of passage from childhood to adulthood for
Yeah.
you, right? Like there's a rite of passage there that like, oh wait, we're separate, we're family. My life is my life, his life is his life,
Yeah.
and he's got an unconditional view and a positive regard, back to Carl Rogers,
Yeah.
of who I am and who I'm trying to become.
And the incredible thing about them, considering where they grew up and the experience that they had, they were strict parents when we were young, but then we got to a point and it was like, right, everything's your choice now. And we're here to support you, but the decisions you make are yours to make.
It sounds like the way that you're coaching Alex.
It is.
And your boxers.
I'm reflective of that. And their thing was, there's consequences to every decision you make and you need to own those consequences.
I love that.
We're here to support you no matter what happens, but it's all you now. And it took me about 12 years to realize that, in terms of the freedom of that. And, they're on the sidelines cheering me on. They love it. They love Alex. They love the boxers. Like everything I do, they watch. They watch every race. They're not Formula One fans.
Yeah, right.
We grew up in the middle of Ireland. We grew up around tractors, not Formula One cars. But they're incredibly proud of that journey. But I didn't see that. That issue was me. That wasn't them. They never stopped demonstrating that for me, but I just couldn't see it.
This is something you're probably going to be able to pass on to your son now.
I hope so. And people make the joke, oh, what professional sport is he going to be in? And I'm like, he can do whatever he wants.
Yeah, right.
The only caveat I have is I would like him to find a passion. I would like to find something that he needs to dedicate himself to.
Yeah.
That requires a discipline.
It's cool.
Yeah,
Yeah.
they're good life skills.
So mastery is something I've dedicated my life to. And so there's mastery of self and craft. And I'm far more interested in mastery of self, and it's through craft. So mastery of self. Yeah. So I don't care what the craft is.
Yeah.
It could be anything. And I remember when I never cared to work with professional athletes, and I get asked often every week. I get questions like, I'm inspired by your path, and like, how can I work with professional athletes? And I quickly fire back, it's the wrong question. It's not the question. All I wanted to work with, and this is not healthy. This was go back like 35 years ago, is I just wanted to work with people that were as obsessed as I was to growth. And my obsession was not healthy at the time. So that's why it's not right. I didn't understand what I know now about like the patience of it.
Yeah.
And the decoupling who I am from what I do. And so, right. So, yeah.
And that's a huge part of Alex. The growth is that identity step.
He took that step.
Yeah.
He is not a driver.
No, he's Alex Albon.
That's right. I think that some of the most dangerous words for humans is I am, and what follows after that is incredibly freeing or restricting. And if you say I am a driver, okay, that might get you world class. It might get you really good, but I don't see freedom and flourishing in that model.
No. And the question, what do you do?
Oh yeah. Yep.
Don't ever ask me that question.
Yeah, that's your favorite cocktail question?
What do I do? Second question. What do you do? What do I do?
How do you answer it? You say, do you bless?
I just say not much.
You do.
Yeah. Now I say not much.
Yeah, not much. Just let it go.
Yeah.
When you want to understand how somebody spends their time and you just want to get a feel for them, I bristle at the question as well. But I'm wondering what you replace that with, or how you shape a conversation to get to know the person in a semi-casual, noisy environment.
Ask a little bit about them.
Yeah, like
simple stuff. Where have you come from?
Yeah.
Have you got siblings? Connect them to something that is real for them.
Yeah.
Something that grounds them.
Yeah, right.
Like that's grounding for everybody, in some form has a family. Everybody in some form has a home. And you can tell a lot from those answers where that conversation is going to go.
1,000%.
Yeah, if their face lights up or face doesn't, then it's you're on or off, and you switch the conversation. But for me, I've had the same identity shift. A few years probably before Alex, and that's probably why I'm in a space where I can help him with that.
We only give what we have. By the way, we can't give what we don't have. If we don't understand something, we can't give that or create the conditions to water it, to put sunlight on it. And so if we are anxious or agitated or whatever, that's what we give. And sometimes those in coaching, whatever, fill in the blank, whatever sport or art or business discipline, is that we think that that's the right requirements, the pressure model. If we can just you got to push people. I rarely, if ever, talk about pushing. I talk about support and challenging, and there are standards, and there's some agreements that we're going to make, and I have a role and you have a role, and do we want to do the work together?
Yeah,
that's kind of like the initial pack. I don't know if I ever told you this, but my wife and I, we had 7 years into our marriage. She says, "I love you, but you got to go." I'm losing my way, Mike, and as a friend, I'm telling you, I don't know how to be me around you. And it was life-changing for me. And I was devastated. Best friend, we dated in high school, like my person.
Yeah.
And I said, no. Like, come on. Like, I'll do whatever. Yeah. She's like, I've told you 100 times. Nothing's changed. As she's crying and saying, as a friend, I need you to move out. I say this, I'm shorthanding the story because so I did. As a best friend, I moved out to honor the space that she needed.
That. Yeah.
And I know as a psychologist that oftentimes separation is a straight path to divorce. You usually don't claw back, or return back home. And so I was terrified. That's not what I wanted. But as a friend, that's okay. So a month later, and this was not about her running around the streets, and that we were honoring our code and the whole thing. And so she, a month later, I called and I was like, can we talk? And I was texting in between, trying to talk every day, but I knew I needed more space. And so we have the phone, and she goes, I said, let's go to therapy. And she said, I made my decision. I was like, just one session. I made my decision, Mike. I said, just one session, just one. We have 20 to 15 years at that time together. One, fine. So we show up, wise woman across from us. Identify with my Italian roots. She's full Latin, and we're at it. This is like 12 minutes into the session, and we are at it. And the woman goes, whoa, 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 whoa. She says, okay, this is about as bad as it gets. And she's kind of like, this is bad now. And so she says, all right, I've got one question for you. Mike, you need to work, right? I was like, yeah. Lisa, you need to work, right? She goes, yeah. She says, here's the question. Do you want to do the work with each other, or do you want to do the work with another partner? I said, holy shit, this is it. This moment.
Yeah.
Right?
Wow.
Yeah, that moment. And so when I say, do you want to do the work? And I ask that to an athlete, I am going right to that place, that moment where everything dropped out, and I was completely flooded with the fear of what it means to do the work, the fear of what she was going to say, and all of the willingness to fight, right? And so I paused. I'm looking at her, and it felt like an eternity. And she goes, I want to do the work with him. I said, me too. Sign me up. Let's go, please. Yeah,
didn't try and style it out. No,
right. Straight I was not cool
on the back of the end of that sentence.
Right. And so we did the work, we've been married 35 plus years. Like, it's been epic. And so when I ask somebody, do you want to do the work? I'm creating space in that moment for that question to feel what that person is going to say. And if they shuck and jive, or they dismiss it and they quickly say, yeah, or what, I need to feel that. Do you do something similar to, it's one of the gates I need to get through to partner with somebody?
Yeah. Firstly, really appreciate you sharing that.
Yeah, man.
That's an incredible story.
Yeah.
And yeah, just really privileged to hear you tell me that. So thank you.
Thanks, man.
I have a similar question. Why are we here? That's my question.
That's why are we here?
Why are we here? You've asked for a conversation with me. I'm here. Why are we here?
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah. And I can tell you within 20 seconds if we're here for a reason or not, or if I'm already out the door. It's when I hear, I just need, what do you need? I just need some help. I just need somebody to kind of, help me gym, or make sure I do my work. And I was like, what?
Yeah.
You're telling me you want to be a world champion and this is the level we're at. If I don't see passion, or if I don't see a love or a joy for what they do, and a perfect example of that is, I get, like probably you get contacted a lot to work with younger athletes, especially in motorsport, right? Mm-hmm. Kids in karting who want to be a Formula 1 driver, but they're 8 years away. But they've got budget, and if you want to get into that, you can get into that. Yeah, exactly. Mm-hmm. But through somebody that I know, I offered to help out this kid a little bit, just do a little bit of physical testing on him. Biologically very young for his age, so struggling a little bit physically. So just said, look, I'll do some testing on him, just see where he's at. But understand that a lot of this is biology. He's just not hit maturity yet. Mm-hmm. And he's just not on that journey. So he's a little bit behind, but he had a lot of talent. And I asked him that question, really articulate young kid.
Again, what was the age? Did you say 8?
He's 13.
13, okay.
Yeah.
I don't know where I heard 8.
But biologically looked like 9.
Okay,
yeah.
Okay, yeah.
Really sweet kid. And I didn't have time for this. I just, my schedule was rammed, and it was in between races, and I was doing it at the boxing gym so I could tag on a session with my boxers and just fit him in. And it was one of those scenarios, right? Just dreading it, going there, going, why am I coming here? And I asked him that question, and his face lit up, and he goes, I just love racing. He goes, I just love driving fast. He goes, and then he just took off. I love overtaking people. I love going into a corner side by side with somebody and just seeing who will hold on. And I was just like, I'm in. I'm still working with him now. And I don't have time to work with him, but I'm making the time.
Yeah.
Because it was just that spark of his face changed the second I asked him that. And he knew exactly why we were there. We were there because he loved racing and he just wanted to be better. That's different.
I don't know. My dad wants me here.
Yeah.
I thought you worked with good drivers and
or the bullshit. I want to be a world champion.
I want to be, yeah.
I'm already out. Yeah. If that's your go-to, that's just a stock answer.
How much of when you listen, are you listening to words versus the shaping and the contour of the words, the emotions?
More connecting to the emotions of it than
and are
the
you
words.
Listening to...
Because skilled people can deliver words.
Yeah, and do it charismatically and whatever. But are you listening to your emotion or are you listening to their emotion?
Listening to their emotion.
Yeah.
Trying to connect to it. Trying to find that connection.
Because
that builds a relationship for me. I need to connect to what you're fundamentally here for. Because I'm not giving up my time with my family.
That's right.
To spend time with you if you can't demonstrate to me that you're all in.
I love this. And what do you do to prepare yourself to be available to feel what's happening in another person?
So when I worked through my own coaching, I had my intentional state was sacred presence.
Sacred
presence. And for me, that is the highest form of listening and just be in the moment and listen. Listen to what they're saying. Listen, like you said, for the words, but listen more for the feeling.
That's right.
Listen for the connection. What are you connecting to? Because, you talk about mastery, and when that question came through, what do I think mastery is? For me, it's dedicating yourself to a journey. And doing it with joy, doing it with love, doing it with passion, in spite of the sacrifices. So knowing that journey is difficult and the likelihood of success may be 1%, but you're still dedicating yourself to that. That's the journey I'm on in terms of, okay, I can go on that with you because your commitment to that is driven by something so far deeper than I just want to win stuff. You can't articulate that to me. Like, as in, that doesn't connect to me. Sorry, that's the wrong phrase, but no, I can't connect to that.
I definitely understand.
But I can connect to a love for what you do.
Yeah.
And I can sense that the minute you start talking about it to me. We talked a little bit about, me and being in a little bit of a transition and the scales balancing up a little bit in terms of the sacrifice versus what I get from the job. And that's always a question I ask myself this time of year, staring into a 30-week travel schedule. But for me, the passion, love, and joy for what I do is still there in terms of the connection to their journeys.
And if you say it simply, what I do is?
In terms of?
Your professional life.
What I do is build relationships.
I thought that's what you were going to say.
Yeah.
Dude, I love how you think. And it was just, we started this conversation about that early spark. It was a loud bar.
Yeah.
And was it like on a...
It was in like the W Hotel. It was chaos.
It was chaos.
Yeah.
It was like...
It's like Tuesday race week.
Yeah, it was chaos.
It was the people who are in for a week. Like they're in for a party week. If you're there on a Tuesday of a race week, you're not there for the race.
On. And that particular, the F1 race in Miami was the first ever.
First one.
And it was like, what was it? It was like Billionaire Row meets like solicitation of business and sex, and like it was wild.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was so far from anything that was sports performance related.
Yeah. And you and I are in this loud environment talking about like, what do you love?
Yeah.
Yeah. Like, how do you think about
like, how we coach?
Yeah. Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
So good.
Like philosophy. I remember some of that, like talking about, and very similar to what we were just talking about, why we're in the space. Why we're here.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
Oh
Over a beer in a bar.
Over a beer. Yeah. Yeah. So, okay. So now we've gotten through Tuesday.
Wow. Yeah. How long is this pod?
Yeah, I know. So now, like, all right, maybe can we spend a few minutes to talk about, you and I spend so much time with quote unquote the best in the world, and people fundamentally committed to it, whether they're knocking at the door there or whatever, but certainly the people you're spending time with are in it. I know that you've got an interest in the developmental part prior to, so the youth aspect of it. What are you doing there? Tell me, like, because you're in mid-flight for your PhD.
Yes.
And you just shifted your dissertation to?
Yeah, so I guess the precursor to the shift was from this season on, I'm going to be the Academy Performance Lead for Williams Racing Young Driver Academy.
That's rad.
Yeah, so we've got six drivers across Formula 2, which is the category below Formula 1, then Formula 3, a category called FRECA, which is below Formula 3, in between single-seater cars. That's the first entry-level single-seater car. So
and is go-kart before that?
Go-kart, exactly. And we've got a kid in go-karting as well.
You do
he's
have
current
a
European champion. Yeah. So right from you're one step away to you're a lot of steps away.
Yeah, got it.
And so the front end of the role is put a science structure in place, put a performance structure in place to help support these young athletes, develop the physical capacity, and start bolting on some of the behaviors that we expect from people who operate in a professional sports environment.
Cool.
So that's the tagline, right?
Yeah.
My philosophy around that is, well, how do we help these kids get better at just being themselves? Because if they got the technical ability, we put the right processes in place, and we give them the behavioral and emotional strategies to be able to exist in that environment, or at least the ability to question, the ability to be self-aware, the ability to articulate themselves and communicate and build relationships of their own, they're exponentially, for me, more likely to be successful. So I guess for me, the tagline was the performance structure. The depth of that was, well, how do we help them? What influences success in those environments? So my doctorate has very much shifted now to looking at talent identification in young athletes. Are there characteristics that we see in young athletes that make them more likely to be successful, both physical, mental, behavioral, cognitive, technical?
Do you use cognitive and psychological interchangeably?
Yeah. So for me, cognitive is more the technical aspects of the racing, which is memory recall.
Yeah, it's more brain processing.
More brain function as opposed to emotional strategies. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So are there characteristics that we can look at that make or are setting these kids up to be successful? Or are there characteristics that we can see in these kids, or that characteristics that are missing that mean they're more likely to be unsuccessful? But having trawled through a lot of research in the space, and obviously not a lot in motorsport, but a lot of research elsewhere in football and NFL and rugby and multi-team sports, people look what they call multi-dimensional assessment, but actually nobody looks at the environment. And very little of the research is actually looking at the individual. So there's a questionnaire here or there. There is this sort of assessment, but what questions are we asking these young kids about performance, about their journey, about who they are as individuals, about how that can set them up, and how that, what are the barriers there to you being better at what you do? And if they can't articulate that right now, how are we helping them to articulate that and understand that?
How sophisticated do you want to be with talent identification on this part of it? I mean, we're talking about using technology or subjective?
So a lot of this is subjective. Well, the technology part comes in on more the physical, technical assessment. And then the rest is, for me at the minute, subjective in terms of more qualitative based, right? Yeah. Experiences, understanding. That's the level we're at. I think that's just the entry level, right? And that's the doctorate right now. What I'm not trying to do is here's the checklist, and if this kid ticks off all these boxes, then they're going to be successful, because that's not how it works.
Yeah, there's if that we thing can't, called the X factor.
Yeah,
like the things that we don't know.
Yeah, and we place them in these environments. The way it works in motorsport, where we are, they're part of our academy, but they're placed at teams, and the teams are kind of fundamentally looking after them for the season. Mm-hmm. But what are those environments like? What are the attitudes of the engineers and the team principals in those environments? What do they understand about sports performance? What do they understand about developing young athletes? What do they understand about a young kid who's facing adversity and pressure from family, and they're in your space and they're maybe underperforming? How are you supporting that?
If a kid were to leave the academy and not make it into an F1 seat, okay, and he leaves the academy at whatever phase, but he spent, I don't know, 18 months. And you saw him and he recognized you and was on the street. And what would you hope if you said, what did you learn? What would you hope he says?
That he understood himself more.
Yeah, period.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that shocker coming from you.
Yeah.
Yeah, right. Like, okay, perfect.
This is starting to get boring.
Yeah, right. No, that's what I would hope too.
Yeah.
I mean, kind of a mistake, like, oh, I've got better kind of controls over my hands, or I know where to look on the track to hit the apex a little bit faster. So it's not cognitive, it's not technical. They're going to get those. They're going to get the physical training and all that. But you said, I know myself better. So is this question about talent identification, or is this question about examining the environmental conditions for flourishing, for knowing oneself better?
So that's study 3.
Got it.
Yeah,
I see.
So the title and the precursor is let's just look at what we've got right now in terms of athletes, quantitative, qualitative. Let's look at what we're creating for them, and then now let's look at the space. Once we understand,
that's really cool.
Once we understand our house more, let's go outside.
So the environment is so there's culture and environment. Let's use those two words in the same category, but they're very different. Yeah. Environment is the conditions, and culture is the way that people relate to each other and the conditions. I'm more interested.
I was going to ask you that. I was going to ask you what you define culture as.
Culture, my best definition is the artifact of relationships.
Yeah.
So if you want to understand the culture, look at the relationships.
Yeah.
And there's all types of clues about how a culture is healthy or unhealthy. And let me ask you this question. Is the culture a high-performing culture, or is the culture what it is that produces high performance?
I would go to former.
It's a high-performing culture.
So for me, I break that down in that the individuals within that environment are high-performing.
Which would mean to me that they need to have then, because it's about relationships, a high-performing relationships.
Yeah.
Is that what you would rest on?
Yeah, I would rest on that. And if you take the teams that we've been at in Formula One, we were at Red Bull for 2 years.
Yeah, that's right.
There's no higher performing environment in Formula One right now.
Yep.
Now you can step into that environment, and I often use the word toxicity, but I don't necessarily mean it in a really negative way, but there's a coldness about that space.
Yeah, so that's where I go high performance culture, or a culture that produces high performance. Because a high performing culture, there are, I don't know, countless probably ways to create. We talked about earlier before the mics were on, Bobby Knight is a well-known American basketball coach. And he was known for throwing chairs at kids, maybe even choking a kid here and there. Like and he won a lot.
Yeah.
Was that a high performing culture? Maybe a human damaging culture, but was that a high performing culture?
Yeah.
It produced high performance, certainly. It's not a culture I want to be part of.
No, that's a good point. But for us, okay, Alex was in a different space right then. He wasn't at the level in terms of his understanding of the environment. But for me, and now at Williams, and, I'm not being disrespectful when I say it's a team on a journey of its own. Mm-hmm. It's transitioning from being P10 in the championship, how many years in the last 5 or 6? P7 in the championship this year. So made a good step.
There's only 10 teams. There's only 10 teams. Yeah, to be clear.
So yeah, only 10 teams.
And just to add color, Williams is one of the top 3 overall in the history. of F1 most successful clubs.
Drives me insane.
Yeah.
Heritage brand. Oh, if I hear that word. It's what we do right now.
You don't like that.
No, I don't like that.
And
I celebrate that. It's really good to understand your history and be proud of that. But the positives of that have worn off 15, 20 years ago. You're P10 for a reason. So let's look at why we're P10.
There you go. And there's a new CEO.
Yeah, new CEO, new team principal.
It takes time to get a culture
absolutely
connected.
But when I look at our Red Bull days, the trust I had in terms of everybody in that environment nailing what they needed to do. So that performance space for us, our whole concern was about turning up, putting our own practices in place, delivering. No other noise, zero noise. Go to Williams.
What'd you say?
Go to Williams. And this is no joke, I'll tell the story. Me and Alex were telling this story a couple of days ago. First time at the factory, for me, I went up, he was doing a seat fit, right? So obviously all the driver's seats are created for them
Customized.
Individually. Exactly. A really high-tech process. So we go up, he's getting a seat fit in the morning and he's doing sim in the afternoon. So I go up.
Simulating driving.
Yeah, exactly.
Track
So
they want to get better at.
Yeah, like PlayStation on steroids.
Yeah.
Incredible pieces of kit. So it replicates as much and as close to the race environment as you can. You know, the simulator moves in line with the track, and you know, you can create any environmental conditions for the tires, etc. So these pieces of kit are just off the charts. So it's running late. It's already running late. He's already eating into his sim time. And he's in the car getting a seat fit, and the guy running the seat fit goes, I just have to go and walk my dog. I'll be back in an hour. And me and Alex, like one of those moments where I'm pretty sure that's what he said, but he can't have said that.
Couldn't have said that.
And we looked, I remember leaning down and looking under the halo. Alex was in there. And he looked at me like eyebrows furled. And I was like, did he just say, and off he went? And not only was he an hour, he was an hour and 15 minutes.
Oh my, he actually did it?
Did it. Off he went. And I was like, wow. And that set the tone for that season. And you were there for a part of that and you saw some of that. And I, you know, I'm not being derogatory about Williams, but
the seat was a problem for the other driver as well.
Yeah.
Little bone spurs.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But that was just a bit reflective of where they were in terms of their attitudes. There was a bit of an acceptance of being last. I turn up and try attitude. And I had another conversation. I had this conversation with somebody and he'd very much said that phrase, which was, you know, no matter how bad things get, we get to play with cars for a living. And my response to that was, I'm not spending 30 weeks away from my family to play with a car.
Oh my God.
That's not what I'm here for.
Yeah.
And if you're here for that, then that's why we're P10.
Yeah, right.
And that's, I think, the difference. I mean, when I can appreciate an environment where it may be a little bit cold, because I can develop the meaningful relationships within that are key for Alex, which is his lead engineer, his race engineer, his controls engineer, the couple of other people in the engineer structure that we know are important to us, and we build those relationships. In that environment, we just have to be a bit more protective of where we put our energy. Now, we've developed some really strong relationships with Williams, but they're on a journey, and Alex is a huge part of that journey.
Well, let me just add this to it, is that the relationship bit, that's a relationship that is, that's not the right relationships, because it's not honoring what the other person at that time needs. It's actually taking care of like a home need.
Yeah.
And a home life is important, of course, and a dog's bladder is really important. We get all this, but there's a mismanagement if that's, and if that happened to be a wild time, that something happened you get it. And you, of course, you make exceptions for those things, but that's not a relationship based culture that is built on the invisible handshake that we are here for a reason. And it's the invisible handshake that, unless that becomes visible, meaning that I have a rash when we talk about we're family. No, this is not, I have a family. We're teammates. And I can't wait to get in the trenches and with you, like, assuming you're a good teammate. And like, so I have a rash to that, you know, so I don't want to mistake family and relationships in the same thing. There's a handshake. It's a performance-based handshake, the highest standards of excellence. I'm going to support and challenge you to be your very best. And I hope you'll do that for me. And I got your back. You got my back. Let's go get it. And that type of relationship has electricity. It can be warm in some instances. And you said it's kind of cold. That's the culture.
Yeah.
And people shape culture. And oftentimes it's an abdication, meaning that we just assume somebody else is shaping culture. But every actor inside of the culture has a responsibility to contribute to the center. And if it feels too cold, most people won't say anything if results are happening.
Yeah.
So like,
And if you ask me to define what I think culture is, I always say it's the sum of collective behaviors. Or sorry, sum of individual behaviors. It's the sum of individual behaviors. Culture is created for me by the behavior and intentionality and delivery of each individual within that space.
Oh, cool.
Now that can look in different ways, but for me, culture is bottom up. It starts with the person who mops the floor.
Yep.
And we build culture.
That's interesting because I think it goes top down, bottom up. I think when you have somebody that's at the head of the organization that says, this is really important to me, and it's at the front of an agenda as opposed to the end of the agenda, culture starts to take some shape.
Okay.
But it's up to every person in the organization to pour into the center of that vision. And if the leader doesn't care about it, it will become something. Every organization, every family, every team, every unit has a culture, whether it's intentional or not. But it is, let's think about coaches and athletes. Whose responsibility is it? It's everybody's. Yeah. But who's going to set the direction? Oftentimes it's a person that really cares about culture. And if they have the right level of respected voice, now you've got a chance at it.
Yeah.
You know, and oftentimes the best player is not the one that ought to set culture because they don't know. So if you just leave it up to the best player, that's not necessarily a smart move either.
No, absolutely not.
Yeah.
And I've seen that in team culture, but certainly in our, our team is our structure, right? It's a weird one because we're like a little bubble within a team. Me and Alex are our own team.
That's right. Yeah.
Yeah. We've got our own little team, and he's at Williams right now. He's been at Red Bull. He's been at Toro Rosso. We've moved together. So our culture is within ourselves, and it's it's visible and invisible.
Mm-hmm.
We're here for a reason.
Yeah, that's cool, man.
Like I don't need to ask Alex about his journey. I know his journey. I know why he's there, and he's godfather to my son, so he's connected to me in that way. But he also knows I'm there because I say the word expect. I expect that if we're on that journey together, then there is no taking our foot off the pedal. And I'm not using a racing analogy on purpose, but I'm only in this as long as you're in this. And if I think you take your foot off the pedal, then I'm out.
I would challenge you that you probably have a way to carry some water to help out if he's got. So let me be more concrete. I think about a relationship, like what you're talking about, committed relationship. I got 2 jugs of water, one in each hand, and you have 2 jugs, and we're committing. We got to get these jugs over. We want to get these jugs over here.
Yeah,
like, this is gonna be great, and like this is our commitment to each other. And I go, oh my God, I got a blister, dude. And you're like, all right, and we're on pace. All right, hey, listen, I can do 3 for a minute. All right, thanks, brother. Okay. And then if I just look over and I see you're carrying 3, and I'm like, oh, this is easy. At some point, you're like, hey, right? Yeah. Like, what am I doing? Yeah, okay. But if you go, I got you. And then I go, great. And then as soon as I can, I grab that jug back. And I go, you need a break? I think I got 3. Like, you want to get me? And you're like, yeah, man, can you get these 3? Great. So it's that pack.
Yeah.
But if I put both down.
Yeah.
Right? So we got some problems. Now you got 4. Maybe you can do it for a couple steps. You're a very strong lad. But at some point, like, we both have to carry water.
Yeah.
And if we're not committed to it, so there's a give and take. And for me, are you saying, no, you carry 2? You said you're going to carry 2.
No, that's not what I meant.
And if you're sick, I still expect you to carry 2.
No, there's always going to be fluctuations.
Yeah, okay, cool.
For me, it's the fundamental goal is still consistent, which is irrespective of those fluctuations, the vision is still to be the best version of ourselves that we can be. And that will always have ups and downs, peaks and troughs. That's just athletic journey. That's just life journey. I mean, athletic journey. Mm-hmm. We will both have difficulties. He's been present in difficulties that I've had personally, as much as I've been present for him. Mm-hmm. I remember leaving Magello track one night after having some bad news from home and holding it in all day just because I knew he needed to perform. And he knew something was up, and he just asked me as we left the car park, is everything okay? And I just burst out crying. Mm-hmm. And I told him what was going on. And he was like, do you need to fly home? And I said, no, it's good. Like, we're all good. We can get through it. And he got his first podium of his professional career in F1 that weekend.
Wow.
Yeah.
How do you attribute that?
I don't put it down to that. It was a little bit of coincidence for sure. Well, I assume it was coincidence. But if you see any of the footage afterwards and our interactions together, there was more in it than just him getting a podium.
Yeah, that's cool. Yeah.
And like that, there's been periods through the last couple of years where, he's had a little trough and we're both there to pick him up.
Yeah, right.
But for me, it's, I said earlier about somebody saying they wanted to be a world champion. I believe Alex is capable of that, and Alex believes he's capable of that. If that at some point changes in terms of that's what our focus is, then I don't think I'm on that journey.
If what changes?
That his fundamental focus is not, how do I become a world champion?
Got it.
What are the steps that I need to take from now until I can pick up that trophy?
How does that conflict with the vision is to be the best version and the goal is to be the best? So I hear the best versus my best. And I think you can have both, but for me, the best is the accidental, on purpose, designed, hopeful output. To me, it's my commitment is to help you be your best.
Yeah.
In your micro decisions, day to day, in your actions. And then I don't know if you'll ever have the fastest car.
Yeah.
I don't know,
And I guess I'm probably substituting that phrase world champion, but to me that is the best. Like that is, from a career and technical point of view and a performance delivery perspective, that is the box tick, right? It's calling yourself a world champion. He will have a phenomenally successful career and he will get very close to being the best of what he can potentially be.
Yeah.
Provided we stay on the trajectory that we're on with those peaks and troughs. But
so what is the commitment though, for him to be world champion or for him to be his
for
best?
him to strive for that, that to be the work.
See, I think the work is to help to be my best today and to help others do that. And we're pointing towards something, but the work is my best or his best.
Yeah.
Today.
Yeah. That's a good challenge. And the perspective I've probably not had on that. I'm trying to find the words, but that is a good challenge.
Well, like which one is it?
Yeah. Like which one is it? And I think probably what it boils down to in the phrase that comes to mind is, it is about that. It's about him being the best. But if you believe that that's what he's capable of, then that's within his best.
Mm-hmm.
Now, obviously, like you said, there's environmental factors there, like the car and the conditions and a Max Verstappen and a Red Bull car, right? Mm-hmm. But if that is within your capability, or you believe that to be within your capability, then it's one and the same for me. Mm-hmm. But for sure, our focus, and we talk about being present, right? And we talked about it in the car.
Yeah, absolutely.
We attack every session.
Yeah.
And, we're on preseason camp now. We're 2 weeks in and we're both walking like John Wayne. And more me. More me.
In the training camp?
Yeah. Because I do it all with him.
Yeah, right.
Every session he does, I do.
Yeah, that's fun.
So we're biking a lot, we're running a lot, we're boxing a lot. It's been heavy load, and that's what we're here for. And we need to put some muscle mass on, and that just involves getting to a place of pain that, is required for that to happen physiologically. And we attack every session like that, because we know that this builds for our season. This creates the platform to be able to go into February, get in the car in March and be ready physically. And then it's about the execution side, which is more the technical and cognitive and behavioral. But if we don't do this bit right, then we struggle with the next bit. Mm-hmm. So it's a part of the process, and we're present right now. But I think it's probably that overarching, that it's like what we talked about, like what is the passion and joy and love, and where is that driving you towards? And I think for me, there's a difference between that and just saying, I just love driving and I just want to be on the grid. Okay, that's fine. Have a career, see how many years you can get out of it, go flip to another category like Indy, or go and do Super Formula, or go and do Formula E. Love it. Really happy for you. And if you're in a really good place mentally and you're happy with what you're doing and the decisions you're making, go for it. But I'm not on that journey.
So I had a moment where a member of a Super Bowl winning team, and it's a large team. There's 63 athletes, there's 25 coaches, there's another 100 plus. support staff and management and a large team. And locker room moment, champagne's popping, music is on, the whole thing's happening. We just walked from confetti, So we're having that moment. Coach Carroll, this was with the Seattle Seahawks, and he pulls everybody into the middle of the locker room. And you've seen this image thousands of times. And everyone's hands are on each other's shoulders or kind of on each other. And there's, and so he says, all right. We now have what everyone wants. And I thought, oh my God. Everything was just crumbling in this nanosecond. Like, that's not what I sold. That's not what I signed up for. Yeah. What I signed up, and Coach Carroll and I had a business together at that time. So we're doing our work and we had a business together. We now have what everyone wants. And I thought he was going to say the world champion trophy or something like, and I was like, oh no. And he says, the knowing of what it takes to be our very best. I said, thank God. Yes, yeah. That's
what you're on board for.
The knowing of what it takes for us to be our very best. And we did know during that season, and actually a little bit before the end of the last season, which ended earlier than we would hoped in the playoffs, not the championship game. And we knew, like, this is a championship caliber team.
Yeah.
Like this is a team, these talent pieces, and the way it felt and the energy and the noses pointed in the same direction and the standards and the type of yelling at each other and the type of loving of each other and the type of crying with each other was honest. It was honest work, razor's edge, We now have what everyone wants. And I thought all of a sudden, like, it was going to evaporate. Like, holy shit, this has always been about a trophy. Never for me is this about the trophy. The knowing of what it takes to be our very best.
Yeah. That's powerful.
Isn't that cool?
Yeah.
Yeah, man. Hey, listen, I love the time we get to spend. I'm so stoked you came in.
Yeah, this has worked out really well.
This is awesome, dude. Yeah. Congrats on everything that you are co-creating with Alex, with your boxers, with your loved ones. Like, your life, the way that you've designed it, has a contour and a shape that has soul and substance. It's got an honesty to it that I think people in your life are better for you. And I can't imagine a way to give you a higher compliment than that. And so thank you for the way you show up. I love how I feel around you. And so I'm so stoked that we got to do this officially so others can kind of feel who you are as well.
Yeah. And I think, I've done a few of these different types of things, but your ability to make people comfortable in the space around you is the reason why we've been able to sit here and talk for however long and probably not answer the first question you asked me.
Yeah, I know, right? Yeah, I know. That's how it works.
I appreciate you in that space.
Thank you.
And, I've thought about you a lot.
Oh, cool.
Yeah. Not in that way, but certainly in terms of the conversations we've had and how powerful they've been, and just knowing that in an environment like Alex gets challenged, I get challenged too, and knowing, you're a really good sense check for somebody like me.
Yeah.
Which is
awesome.
We're on the right path.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Yes,
so thank you.
Yes, sir, man. All right. So where can people follow you, like, on social, and, like, just to kind of get a, I know
I'm not a social guy,
but it's cool. I've got
an Instagram.
Yeah.
So it's Patrick H _coach. Patrick H.
There's no H in the English language.
H.
Yeah.
Is that it?
Is that it? Yeah. Patrick H _ coach.
Yeah.
Yeah. Good. All right.
And that's it. I'm just on Instagram.
Yeah. Good. Yeah. I think you're going to get some messages here, and some big hearts and some,
some cool other stuff.
Yeah. Cool, man. So, all right, cool. So appreciate you. Let's do this more often.
Yeah. Looking forward to it.
See you, mate.
Thank you.